agencies of government and other employers to take advantage of, like the penalty waivers and the need for an employer to be responsible enough and go and begin to dismantle the principle so that at least they enable that work as part of good corporate governance for their workers to be enabled, for those who have actually achieved the minimum eligibility criteria of 60 months, so that they also go and get. And the good news also is that this is an ongoing process, Honorable Member. It's an ongoing process. So if you didn't get last year, you will get it this year when you achieve or you reach the minimum age limit or eligibility criteria. So anybody who didn't get it last year, while the employer is working on dismantling the principle, and they also arrive at that eligibility criteria, minimum 60 months, they can get it any time into the future. So there's opportunity and windows all the way. It's not a one-off facility. It is ongoing whenever someone wants it, whenever the employee wants it, and they've met the criteria I submit. So we will come and inform.
The Honourable Member for Bonamkubwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your answers and the many interventions which you are taking as a ministry to ensure that the issue of waivering of penalties as well as death swap. But my question is, the local authorities are on record of failing to pay statutory obligations, time immemorial, not only now. Minister, is your ministry coming up with a mechanism in which NAPSA and many of these local authorities can sit to find a way on how they can improve and ensure that some of these or the statutory obligations such as contributions to NAPSA are done especially from the employer's perspective? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Social Security.
Mr. Speaker, it would appear this is the main issue. And from what I can gather here, it is one and the same question about how are you going to deal with the root cause, with the issues at the Ministry of Local Government. And I have indicated here that there is an ongoing conversation. There is an ongoing conversation between NAPSA, of course, involving ourselves as well as the supervising ministry to NAPSA, the secretary to the Treasury, and local government ministry itself. When we have arrived at an agreement on the way forward, which is specific to local government, and indeed the conversations with the Secretary to the Treasury looking into that may impact other MPSs, we will be able to come back here and inform on the way forward of ensuring that what has happened over the past so many years, 10 years plus, does not continue to happen unabated, that there should be measures and early warning systems that will ensure that NAPSA is able to alert those institutions that are lagging behind, and hopefully that they also are able to respond in good time. What more with the waivers that have been given? If indeed you've got a compelling reason that caused you to lag behind in the manner that we have seen over the years, surely when you have a facility such as this waiver that has been put in place, you should take advantage of it and to enable you to only focus on the principle. So we are looking at systems including and not excluding automated systems of early warning to all contributors, to all employers, so that we go into the future with a step change, not to repeat the failure to meet obligations such as these that affect other people, that affect workers in this manner without attending to them in good time. So I hear the concerns that we need to dig into what we should put in place so that such a thing or incident doesn't occur again. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Chimwemwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, we all know how high the penalties are charged by NAPSA, which are actually charged on a daily basis. We've seen a lot of companies wind up simply because they're unable to pay these penalties. We've heard that you've given an option to the councils to either trade in some of their land, or perhaps there will be a waiver if a certain amount is paid. We all know that the councils right now are actually struggling to come up with any revenue. Therefore, my question is, do you have any plans to perhaps forgo penalties with regard to the councils? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Labor and Social Security. Though the question is a bit different, but you can comment. It's a
Mr. Speaker, could you just shorten it? And I couldn't really hear, as I did amongst the ones at the front. Let him just be pointed.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I'm saying the penalties that are charged to the council, okay? We all know that the council are failing to find any revenue. So therefore, Madam Speaker, this is a temporary measure where they can find some money, pay the principal, then the interest will be waived. However, Madam Speaker, going forward, are you willing to undergo, or are you willing to allow the councils not to pay any penalties in future? Is that okay?
The Honorable Minister, are you ready for the question? If not,
If I hear him correct, Mr. Speaker, the waiver is available on application. One has to apply. I did indicate earlier on that one of the councils, I did mention, Chongwe Municipal Council, has since made an application for the waiver. So this facility is available on application. Those who have got compelling reasons, Mr. Speaker, demonstrate that it was due to COVID, demonstrable with good evidence, demonstrates that there are other factors that were beyond your abilities, like a drought or whatever it is that is beyond you. And that's why they say it's a business case. Make a business case. That will enable you, will enable the authority to waive those penalties, the 10%. Remember, there was a reduction from 20% to 10%, but then it even went deeper to actually be waived at 100%. So yes, councils can apply for this, so long as they also demonstrate a plan, a phased plan of how to pay. We did indicate here that there's agreements on a time-bound payment schedules. So that will be done combined with a waiver, and you demonstrate responsibility by paying, entering into the time-bound agreements of payment, and you pay so that you enable this worker to have their pension ready and for them to access it at the right time, at the time that they want to access it. Yes, for that reason, Mr. Speaker, yes, this facility is available. Apply. Let the councils apply. And this information is going to the whole nation. Apply for it. NAPSA will not invite you to say, come along and we will give you this to you. You have to, the SI says you apply for it. I submit.
the Honorable Member for Chipiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Although my question has been answered, she has explained, the Minister has explained very, very well, but I just wanted to make a comment that you needed to continue engaging the Ministry of Finance, local government, and your ministry to ensure that the money is found so that our people can benefit from the partial withdrawal. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Labour and Social Security.
Mr. Speaker, that is the comment, and I'd like to thank the honourable member. We continue engaging NAPSA at the front line. I submit.
The Honorable Member for Chama North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Minister. I am alive to the fact that local authorities have not been filing returns, NAPSA returns, since NAPSA was created in 2000. However, I think the situation has now been normalized, although those returns have not been backed by payments. So I want to find out from the Minister whether you have the figure, the exact amount local authorities owe NAPSA in terms of non-remittance of statutory obligations. I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Labour and Social Security.
Mr. Speaker, I may not have the figure with me in the immediate, but this information can be made available. It's available, but I didn't come with it as it is in here. But I think I'll take the opportunity to just indicate in terms of update of what has been paid out to date, Mr. Speaker, on the 20%. The target was 12 billion, and as at February, the total paid out to members that meet the criteria is at 9.330 billion. So 9.330 billion has been paid up to the number of members amounting to 442,232 members. 500,000 people have benefited. You can imagine what empowerment interventions are taking place in our communities across the nation with this amount of money, close to 10 billion almost. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Shuangando.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, before you are able to listen now? Honourable Minister, before the introduction of NAPSA, local authority employees used to subscribe to Local Authority Superannuation Fund, LASIF, and those who retired were cleared through lump sum, I think, payments from LASIF. And there were those that were migrated from LASIF scheme to NAPSA. And those that are new employees of local authorities who went straight to subscribe to NAPSA. Which of these categories has been affected by this situation of the local authorities failing to pay their obligations to NAPSA and consequently affecting these employees not to access the so-called partial withdrawal? And how would you describe the transition period of, those that migrated from LASIF to NAPSA? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Social Security.
Mr. Speaker, as in the information provided, that subdivision has not been made. And again, I would indicate that if that is critical to resolving the issue, we will be able to provide that kind of information. As of now, it does not segregate from the two criteria that you provided, the Honourable Member, through you, Mr. Speaker. But if it's important to the solutions that have to be provided to cover this gap, we will definitely pull out that information and see how it helps us in the interventions that will help us resolve the issue for the future. Just to go backwards, Mr. Speaker, there was a question from Mr. Mtaya Chalo, the Honorable Mtaya Chalo, about the number, the total number of those, what is owing by the local authorities. And the number is 7,652,257,290.25 in Gwe. That is what is owing from the local authorities. I submit.
Thank you. Next question, the Honorable Member for Bangweulu.
Question 228.
The Honorable Minister of Defense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Kasandwe, Member of Parliament for Bangweulu constituency, has asked the Minister of Defense the following question. A, why applicants who were unsuccessful for medical reasons in the 2023 Defense Force recruitment exercise were not availed with their medical results, and B, whether the government will avail the unsuccessful applicants their medical results so as to allay their anxieties. Mr. Speaker, the answer from Ministry of Defense is as follows. First and foremost, the medical results for a patient is a confidential matter. It's only known by the doctor or the health personnel and the patient. Therefore, the medical results for unsuccessful candidates can be availed to individual candidates as long as he/she presents himself or herself at a medical facility where such tests were conducted. Mr. Speaker, it is a requirement that all applicants wishing to join the Zambia Defense Forces must undergo comprehensive medical examinations, physical fitness tests, and aptitude tests. All this is done in order to select applicants that meet the selection criteria as prescribed in the Defense Act, Cap 106 of the laws of Zambia. Medical examinations in the 2023 Zambia Defense Force recruitment exercise were conducted after verification of names. Thereafter, candidates were sent to medical examination centers at respective recruitment centers and medical facilities. The medical examinations ranging from physical examination, laboratory investigations, and radiological imaging were done from those centers. B, Mr. Speaker, the government will not avail the medical results for the unsuccessful applicants due to the reasons given in Part A above. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bangweulu, supplementary questions.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has not given reasons to why. Of course, he attempted to say that it is confidential between the applicant and the institution that conducted the medical tests. But the reason I brought this question to the attention of the Minister is that most of the applicants were unsuccessful. They were told that they were unfit. Now, we are looking at a situation of more than 5,000 young people who were not well, according to the Minister of Defense. And I did mention in this House that some of those may have been suffering from communicable diseases. So we have people who are moving around, who do not know their medical status,
and the danger is for them to spread to other citizens. So why are you finding it a very difficult, Minister, simply to communicate to individual and successful applicants, those who failed medical tests? Why are you finding it difficult? Just communicate to them individually so that they know their status. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Defense.
I think I've been quite categorical on what I said. The examination results can be availed to the individuals unsuccessful who come to officially ask for those results. We'll give them, but we will not, as per standard procedure, just dish them out because you're unsuccessful. However, if you come forth and ask for the same, we shall be able to avail those results to you. So that is the standard procedure, I'm afraid, and we will abide by that. And there's no danger at all. You come, we'll give it to you on a patient-doctor confidentiality basis. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I just want to get clarity from the Minister of Defense. In answering the question B, the Minister stated in the House that the results will not be availed to the unsuccessful applicants for reasons given in A. But then the Minister also clarifies that those who will come can be given on the basis of confidentiality. Aren't you being inconsistent, Honorable Minister, by answering two questions differently? Thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Defense.
Let me be simple and straightforward. The standard procedure is that we shall not avail those results without any official request being made by the recruits who are unsuccessful. So that's the standard procedure. We'll keep them, will not avail them to anybody. However, if that recruit, the individual, would like to know the status, his health status, he's free to officially ask for those results at the center where he was tested. And those results will be given to that individual. So maybe that with that, I should have clarified the issue of A and B. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Chiluvi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since government undertakes disease surveillance using different methods, for instance, there is a policy that, I don't know if that policy still stands, that whoever goes to the hospital should also be tested for issues like HIV and many other, so that the government knows the status of the country in that particular area. And from the minister's submission, is saying that they have kept the data for potential sick people, I would say, which is for non-communicable and communicable disease. Since that data has been kept, whose integrity of that data I doubt, is the ministry thinking of using that data as part of the disease surveillance in the country, because disease surveillance can be in the antenatal, can be in the normal routine as people go to check for different ailments. Is the ministry thinking of using that data, since it's medical data, to put it as part of disease surveillance and call the possible people that were found with such ailments to address the diseases that they are suffering from, since they are unfit to go for military training?
The Honorable Minister of Defense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The data is strictly for the use by the Defense Force. We do not disseminate it to anybody else, except in the exception that you come and ask for those results. It's specifically confidential and is kept by the Defense Force. Thank you.
The honourable member for Bangweulu.
Honourable Minister, I just want you to confirm, among the many young people who were successful and deemed to be fit, can you confirm that some of those during trainings who were deemed to be fit have since passed on? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The training, this is why we do try and do a thorough job in terms of testing, medically, physically, etc., etc. All the aptitude tests and whatever is required to ensure that we get material that will last the training sessions. Unfortunately, we are not God. So the training is vigorous. And unfortunately, sometimes we lose some of the recruits. And I must say, here, we have lost some of the recruits. This is why it's important, as parents, don't force your kids to go for training when the trainers, the teams, says this person is unfit for military training. So unfortunately, we lose some. And according to CAP 106 Defense Act, that is expected, unfortunately. So yes, I can confirm that some of those who were taken on, one or two, unfortunately, lost their lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next question, the Honourable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 229.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Kaoma, Mr. Muyutu, beg pardon, asked the Minister of Justice the following questions. A, whether the government has any plans to construct new local court buildings in rural areas countrywide, especially where courts are renting buildings. B, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and C, what the short-term measures the government is putting in place to ensure that local courts in rural areas operate in a conducive structure while awaiting construction of new buildings. Mr. Speaker, in response, I wish to inform the House as follows. A, the judiciary has in the medium-term expenditure framework 2024 to 2026 made a provision for capital projects to cater for the construction and rehabilitation of the remaining local court buildings. Under the said medium-term expenditure framework for the period 2024 to 2026, a total of 15 local court buildings will be constructed, while 31 local court buildings will be rehabilitated. The estimated cost of the said construction and rehabilitation of the local court buildings is 59,795,000 kwacha. B, in the year 2022, the judiciary commenced the completion of 22 capital projects, and it is hoped that the works shall be completed within, it was hoped, Mr. Speaker, and I will update the House, that the works would have been completed within the year 2023, the financial year 2023. Construction of the 22 capital projects which commenced between 2011 and 2012 could not be completed on time due to limited funds. In 2022, funds were made available, and the tender process for the remaining work works were concluded in the same year. Out of the 22 capital projects, 12 are local court buildings spread across the country in central, southern, Lusaka, western, eastern, northwestern, and northern provinces. The remaining 10 are construction and rehabilitation works relating to other infrastructure, such as high court buildings, subordinate court buildings, and judges' residence. The total cost for the said 22 capital projects is 46,688,841 kwacha and 28 ngwe. And finally, Mr. Speaker, C, in the interim, the judiciary is renting privately owned properties to accommodate local court activities in rural areas while awaiting construction of new buildings. The number of rented properties is 32 at a cost of 1,488 kwacha per annum. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Supplementary questions. Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, isn't there any intention among the rented structures that the government can negotiate with the owners, the landowners, so that these properties can be bought to avoid the continued rental payments? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As of now, the judiciary, the government, does not have any plans to purchase those properties. The reason being that we have infrastructural work already taking place, as indicated above. Therefore, to purchase properties where there is infrastructural work being undertaken would be to duplicate efforts at greater cost to government. So in the interim, the focus is on completing the works, and as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to update the House that as of today, 22nd February 2024, out of the 22 capital projects I've referred to, 18 were completed and handed over to the judiciary. The remaining 4 are at approximately 65% completion, and they could not be completed in 2023 because of project variation and delay on the part of contractors. So, Mr. Speaker, that underscores the importance of completing the works rather than incurring completely new costs and duplicating efforts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for East-Teze.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity for the people of East-Teze to ask a follow-up question. Now, Minister, for the 15 that have been allocated in this year's budget, what criteria are you using in the allocation of the districts to benefit these local courts? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The criteria used by the judiciary, of course, related to, as a primary, need. Therefore, for example, in areas where there are completely no structures, that would justify the need for us to construct structures to house these local courts. Similarly, where the population is such that it demands the increased presence of judicial officers, that would be one of the criteria. Suffice to say that the criteria used are objective rather than subjective. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity given to the people of Lukasha to ask a question. At the risk of sounding like I'm repeating the Member of Parliament for East-Teze's question, Mr. Speaker, I would like the Minister to share with the House where these 15 that are earmarked for construction will be allocated district by district. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I do not have that information, as the question did not warrant giving that district by district. I did, however, indicate the provinces, broadly speaking, where this construction will be undertaken. And I'll repeat for the benefit of the Honourable Member: Central, Southern, Lusaka, Western, Eastern, Northwestern, and Northern provinces, which all in all entails that the bigger swath of the country has been covered. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to get the views of the government on the status of the critical shortage of infrastructure for local courts. Is there any practical plan that can result into a drastic reduction on the demand for the infrastructure in the plan? I've heard of the short term, of the medium term, but is there any permanent plan that can make sure that the shortage for infrastructure in the local court is substantively reduced? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm struggling a little bit to understand Mr. Speaker, to understand the question from the Honourable Member. I'll do my best to respond to it nonetheless. As has been explained very clearly, a significant amount of money has been allocated to capital projects. It's not just local courts that the judiciary has to look after. There are superior court structures which need attention, the High Court and above. There are subordinate court structures which need attention. And the Honourable Member would have seen in the progressive budgets for the year 2022 and 2023, including the 2024 budget, that there has been an incremental amount that has been allocated for infrastructural development to the judiciary. I do not see what other plan can be put in place other than throwing huge sums of money which the fiscus cannot afford at this time, at this problem. What is important is for us to all understand that there is a will on the part of government and a realization on the part of government that we have a significant challenge in terms of infrastructure for the judiciary, and that we are addressing it, and addressing it positively. You will see, Mr. Speaker, from my address that in the years immediately prior to our taking the reins of administration of this country, zero was literally allocated to this particular aspect of infrastructural development. We have grown in leaps and bounds, and there can be no better plan than being able to do so in whatever way we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We make progress. Next question, the Honourable Member for Itesteze. The Honourable Member for Itesteze.
Question number what? Question number 231.
The Honourable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Mutinta, Member of Parliament for Itesteze, is asking the Minister of Water Development and Sanitation the following question. A, whether government has any plans to rehabilitate the Masasabi Dam in the Masasabi Resettlement Scheme in Itesteze District. B, if so, when the plans will be implemented. And C, if there are no such plans, why? Mr. Speaker, our response is as follows. A, government has plans to rehabilitate Masasabi Dam, which is located in the Masasabi Resettlement Scheme in Itesteze District, to ensure availability of water resources for socio-economic development, such as irrigation, animal watering, and aquaculture, among others. The scope of work and the requirements for rehabilitation of the dams have been ascertained. B, the rehabilitation of the Masasabi Dam will be undertaken when funds are made available to the ministry. And C, as a consequence of the answers under A and B, question C falls off. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary questions? The Honourable Member for Itesteze.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Minister, for the responses and the assurance that indeed the plans are there. to rehabilitate this important dam. Just to put it on record, Mr. Speaker, this dam, it cracked around 1999, and all these years, there's never been any deliberate intentions by government to ensure that this dam is restored. And this dam, it's a dam which is servicing over 2,000 farmers and about 735 households. And these are the people that are now walking over 60 kilometers to go and have their livestock have water. And their economical life has been destabilized by lack of water. Now, Minister, there has been a discussion with the WWF with the possibility of working hand in hand with the government to ensure that they co-finance this project. Is it something that your ministry is aware and something that can quickly be picked up so that this dam can provide water to the people, considering the climate conditions and the water scarcity we are facing this year? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also want to thank the MP for Itesteji for that additional question. Mr. Speaker, we are having discussions with a number of cooperating partners on various issues ranging from rehabilitation of dams, construction of dams, and other projects on water-related and sanitation issues. For now, Mr. Speaker, it will be premature for me to disclose the details of those discussions, but suffice to assure the Member of Parliament that we take note of the importance of the mentioned dam, and that as we scale up our plans to harvest water, to build more water harvesting infrastructure, and also to rehabilitate the existing ones, I want to assure him that we will prioritize this particular dam among the others on our priority list. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Wengwa.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Minister, thank you for that response to the Honorable Member of Itesteji. Minister, the situation in Itesteji over the Masasabi Dam is similar to the situation which is being faced in the Wengwa constituents and majority of the constituencies in the southern province. Minister, I just want to find out from you when you'll be coming on the floor of this House, because in Wengwa constituents, as I'm speaking right now, there are several dams which were bleached last year during the time of floods. And up to now, not even a single dam was repaired by your ministry. But we tried using, CDF, okay, and the other means to rehabilitate the 3 dams in Wengwa constituents. But the dams which bleached are 8 as I'm speaking right now. Minister, when are you coming on the floor of this House to give us a plan for this year so that this coming season, okay, 2024, 2025, a farming season, the water which we are going to receive is not going to go to waste, so that we can harvest a lot of water, especially in the areas where it is, where we have areas where we are not receiving enough rainfall. Minister, when are you going to come on the floor of this House so that you give us a detailed plan so that our people can be given hope, especially Southern Province, Eastern, as well Lusaka and Central Province? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Although I was responding to a specific question in Itesteji, but I just want to firstly thank my colleague, the MP for Wengwa, for that question, and just to indicate that plans are in place and have advanced to ensure that we take stock. We have taken stock of a number of existing dams, and also to ascertain in what state they are in. And what remains now is to announce the plan we have once our technocrats are done putting the information together in terms of what will be done and when that will be done. So, Honorable Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the MP for Wengwa that I'm aware of the situation in Wengwa constituency because we've been discussing it. And very soon I'll be able to inform him, but also inform the other members of the House and the nation at large in terms of the plans we are putting in place to ensure that the existing dams worked on so that they are ready to be used for water harvesting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's make progress. The clerk will now read the orders of the day.
Report of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs, motion of 21st February, resumption of debate.
When business was interrupted yesterday, Wednesday, 21st February 2024, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honourable Member for Kaoma Central that this House do adopt a report of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs on the report of the Auditor General on the rehabilitation, integration of prisoners in Zambia for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 12th December 2023, and the Honourable Member for Lundazi had just finished debating. Any further debate? The Honourable Member for Shuangandu.
Most appreciated, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to make a few comments on the motion that was ably moved by the chairperson of the Committee on Security, Honorable General Stwala, and seconded by the vice chairperson of the committee. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the matter that was tabled by the committee is a critical one, insofar as reformation of our former inmates is concerned. Mr. Speaker, you will recall that our government made a lot of strides in trying to reform the offender management processes, which saw the transformation of what was then prisons into correctional services. That paradigm shift, Mr. Speaker, just entailed that the focus of offender management was going to be non-punitive but correctional one, meaning the focus was to be on reforming those people who could have offended society and were serving different sentences. The matter that the seconder of the motion, Honorable Mamba, raised of non-custodial sentences versus custodial sentences is an issue which is which has been under consideration for some time, and I think government can pick it up. The Minister of Justice is here, can pick it up and see how you can run with this issue so that non-custodial sentences for those that commit misdemeanors is considered. One of the issues, Madam Speaker, which has affected our former inmates in integrating in society has been rejection by society. And therefore, the aftercare services must be enhanced, because when people come out of the correctional service, they would have been away from society. So whether they've reformed and society doesn't appreciate how they have been reformed as changed, law-abiding citizens, requires proper aftercare services. And this should not be left alone, should not be left to the Minister of Home Affairs alone. We have former offenders who are juveniles, and therefore the Minister of Youth and Sport must take an interest in what is happening in these facilities where we we get our children, our youths who are offenders being reformed? What programs can they be put in? Yes, we have introduced schools, there are primary schools, there are secondary schools, but there's more that can be done through the Ministry of Youth and Sport, which has got some empowerment programs. The other issue we have been grappling with, Honorable Minister of Justice, is starter packs. There are skills that are being imparted in the inmates now as part of the reformatory programs. You have seen the facilities that we left in place in Mwembeshi, where we have got modern correctional facilities. The skills facilities that are there are churning out good citizens who could have been offenders. But the challenge has been how do you start them when they are back in the society? They come out with nothing but just skills. So we need deliberate arrangements that can help these inmates quickly fit into society. Because if they come back and there is no proper integration formalities, you find these becoming repeat offenders. And that's not desirable, because the whole essence of correctional services is reforming people so that they become law-abiding, they become productive, and contribute positively in their communities. And so this report is a commendable one, and we commend the Office of the Auditor General for keeping focus on this. The issue of congestion, again, Honorable Minister of Justice and Home Affairs, this has been historical. And I can tell you that we need to look at these matters differently. Really, there will never be a time when resources will be available from the envelope, the resource envelope. That's why you saw that deliberate program of PPP, which we would want to see how we have concluded it, where we wanted to kill two birds with one stone. You know where Chimbokaila is sitting, Kamwara Remand Prison is sitting, are no longer desirable places where you can have correction facilities. Kamwara, you have got now the residential on one hand and the commercial facilities that have grown up. So the desire of government then was to go into a PPP model which would have seen that part of the commercial space be given to a developer who has now developed that beautiful piece of infrastructure you are seeing in Mwembeshi. It was going to be difficult, and I don't think any Minister of Finance will be gracious to put money against the other demands, schools, into correctional facilities. So that you can take as a success story and see how it can help you in terms of going forward. Taking advantage of this, Mr. Speaker, I also would like to urge government to relook at the aspect of moving the correctional services headquarters from Kabwe to Lusaka. This is the second time it is happening. This is the second time it is happening. You can question, but you need to benefit from this, Honorable MP for Kabwe Central. The idea of having the correctional service headquarters in Central Province was for various reasons. One, the infrastructure that has been developed in Kabwe was meant to support the correctional service headquarters. The accommodation, modern accommodation, which has been built there. Now you will have officers traversing from where they are accommodated to Lusaka. The investment in agriculture sector is much more in Central Province, and these agricultural activities are also meant to help reformatory programs. You teach people how to be productive through agriculture. So most of the major projects are domiciled in Central Province. And so those who thought of bringing the headquarters here really need to look at that matter, and it's very critical in order to enhance reformatory programs for the correctional service. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
the Acting Minister of Home Affairs to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to, first of all, appreciate all the honorable members that have contributed to the motion. Let me thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to update the House on the progress made towards the implementation of recommendations highlighted in the report of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs, on the report of the Auditor General on the rehabilitation and reintegration of prisoners in Zambia. I wish to also thank the chairperson of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs and his committee members for the report. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security, through the Zambia Correctional Service, is committed to providing humane custodial services to inmates by progressively providing decent accommodation, beddings, food, and medical services. The aspect of a humane custody is no doubt a precursor to having an effective rehabilitation and reintegration regime. The construction of 32 dormitories at Nansanga Correctional Facility with a combined holding capacity of 1,600 inmates is above 95% complete. This will mitigate the historical congestion in the facilities and contribute to the humane custody of inmates. The government in 2022 procured 50,000 blankets and 25,000 mattresses, which have been distributed to all correctional facilities countrywide. Fabrication of bunk beds is underway. 500 triple and 1,788 double bunk beds have been fabricated. Distribution of bunk beds to facilities will commence soon. Mr. Speaker, in order to achieve the intended results of correcting and rehabilitating inmates, the Ministry, through the Zambia Correctional Service, has taken a number of initiatives, including: 1, collaborating with Management Development Division to review the 2016 Zambia Correctional Service approved structure to provide and cater for different professionals in order to effectively respond to the new mandate that the service has attained following its transformation from a penal management system to a rehabilitative system. Number 2, currently developing the national policy which will enhance the provision of rehabilitation and reintegration services to inmates. Through the offices of the chaplain and offender management, providing spiritual and psychosocial counseling to inmates. 4, conducting continuous capacity building training for both chaplains and offender managers in order to enhance the provision of counseling services. Number 5, employing a total of 82 officers serving as chaplains, offering spiritual and moral counseling in various correctional centers. Number 6, supported the training of 60 officers who underwent training in cognitive behavioral therapy conducted by UNZA in order to acquire knowledge and skills to carry out effective counseling services. Number 7, working with various organizations that offer spiritual support and counseling to inmates at varying levels in the lives of inmates. 8, employing a total number of 243 qualified primary and secondary school teachers serving in various correctional centers as education supervisors and class teachers. In addition, 56 teachers are seconded from the Ministry of Education. 9, employing 119 trade instructors distributed to correctional centers. 10, reviewing the parole rules in order to increase the number of inmates qualifying for parole services. Funds have been provided for the decentralization of the parole board to at least one province during the 2024 fiscal year. 11, continued facilitation for the enrollment of inmates in adult education and vocational skills training. So far, 5,669 inmates have been trade tested in various trade skills and receiving certification by TVETA. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the Directorate of Extension Services, solely responsible for community supervision, job placement, family tie-up, restorative justice, and parolee supervision, compulsory aftercare, community re-entry, and facilitation to halfway homes under the Zambia Correctional Services has been strengthened. The reintegration aspect of inmates after undergoing correctional programs. One milestone under this has been the creation and support of ex-inmates cooperatives with various empowerments to assist them to safely reintegrate back into communities across the country. The service has so far supported 32 cooperatives managed by ex-inmates. Currently, there are 48 facilities with restorative justice and peace-building programs. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry commits itself to rehabilitation excellence by developing and implementing holistic rehabilitation programs to enhance reformation of inmates. This will be done by addressing the challenges of inadequate industry equipment, inadequate infrastructure, including workshops, and inadequate skilled human resource. I urge all stakeholders to support initiatives aimed at rehabilitating and reintegrating inmates so that they become functional members of the community once again. In the same vein, I implore communities to welcome back into society reformed ex-inmates so that they can feel a sense of belonging. I urge the House to adopt the report. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kaoma Central to wind up debate.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity to wind up the debate. And in doing so, I would like to thank Honourable Musanje Mbavala, Honourable Chilangwa, Kawambwa, and the Honourable Kampiongo for their very positive debate on the subject matter, which we value. This being an issue of human rights, I think I also want to thank the whole House for the support on this motion. On behalf of the committee, I would also like to thank the Acting Minister of Home Affairs for his well-intended remarks. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you.
I put the question. The question is that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs on the report of the Auditor General on the rehabilitation integration of prisoners in Zambia for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 12th December 2023. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary, say no. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Her Honor, the Vice President, adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is that the House do now adjourn. Any debate? Any objection? The question is agreed to. The House is now adjourned.
There you have it, viewers. The House has just adjourned, and now we take a look at business that has been considered today from the time business resumed at 14:30 hours. And so when business resumed at 14:30 hours, Madam Speaker did make one announcement in which she informed the House that it was observed yesterday during the sitting that the House had some members wore the Ngoni traditional headgear This was probably in support of the Mchwala traditional ceremony, which is scheduled to take place on Saturday, 24th February 2024.
Madam Speaker, I did advise of the House that a standing order 206 1 Part C over the National Assembly of Zambia Standing Orders 2021 is instructive on the kind of a traditional attire that is permissible. The Speaker did say that the provision allows members to wear decent traditional attire such as siziva. Decence of a traditional attire is a question of fact and may be viewed differently, especially if worn in an incomplete manner.
Therefore, Madam Speaker informed the House that she found the wearing of the Ngoni traditional headgear in the House was inappropriate in accordance with the standing orders. And so that's the announcement that Madam Speaker made when business resumed at 14:30 hours. We now take a look at some of the questions for oral answer that have been considered today.
So the House did consider one question for oral answer understanding order 76, questions of agent in nature, and 10 questions for oral answer understanding order 74, questions of ordinary nature. So question 221 came from Ms. Brenda Nyarenda Lundaza, Member of Parliament. She did ask the Minister of Infrastructure, I beg your pardon, Housing and Urban Development, whether the government is aware that in the last 2 weeks, bridges at the following crossing points in Chief Kapichila and Chief Domes in Lunda's parliamentary constituency have been washed away due to heavy rains. The areas are as follows: Kahuji on Lunda's River, Bokosi on Lunda's River, Makaka on Musu's River, and Zuza on Musu's River. And in responding, the minister did say that government was aware. In answering part B of the question, the minister did say that government through Road Development Agency will undertake an assessment over the affected crossing points before the end of February to ascertain the extent of the damage.
And we now take a look at some of the questions that were considered under questions for oral answer under Standing Order 74. Do remember that the House did consider 10 questions, and question 223 did come from Mr. Mishek Mutelo, who is Mitete, Member of Parliament. He did ask the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security whether the government has any plans to procure aircraft for police to enhance their operations, especially in areas that are not easily accessible by road. And the minister did respond that the government is aware. So when the plans will be implemented, the acting minister did respond that plans will be implemented when funds are made available. In C, how many aircraft will be procured? The acting minister did respond that 1 helicopter will be procured. And in part D, how many police officers have been trained as pilots? The acting minister did indicate that Zambia Police Service has